welcome to Getting Your Money's Worth, the show that focuses on value. I'm Judith West, and our guest today is Toby Israel, consultant and author of Someplace Like Home, using design psychology to create ideal places. That's a mouthful. Hi, Toby. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, you're a consultant in design psychology. What is design psychology? I haven't seen those two words married together
That's
before.
a very good question. Well, I say what I do is I practice architecture, planning, and interior design, in which psychology is the principal design
Are you a
tool.
trained psychologist?
Well, I have my Ph.D. in environmental psychology.
Okay. So now environmental psychology is another kind of hyphenated word that's rather new on the horizon.
Well, environmental psychologists have been around for a while. We look at how places affect people and people affect places to create a fit or a match between people and place.
So is that interpreted to mean designing and furnishing your residence?
Yes, I work with individual homeowners, helping them to find or create their ideal home space. I also work with groups, from developers to healthcare people.
Let's just isolate the residents, because that's the greatest part of our audience. So folks call you in, and you have to analyze them while you're talking to them. How do you get to what their psyche is all about?
Right. Well, I've developed a series of 9 exercises, what I call a design psychology toolbox.
Your toolbox, okay.
Right. And it kind of delves into people's past, present, and future sense of place and home.
So give me a sense, and these are 9 questions? Or are
no,
they pen and paper?
Yes, I don't make anybody do calisthenics. They're all pen and paper. Yes.
Okay, so give me a sense of how you start.
Well, for example, I have people do something called an environmental family tree to remember the homes of their grandparents, great-grandparents, whatever. The idea behind that is that we all have a kind of environmental family tree, environmental autobiography.
Is that positive or negative?
Well, it can be both. So it affects us. We don't really realize it sometimes
unconsciously. You might just want to have whatever you have totally different from where you grew up.
Well, that's true. But what I say is that we have this past history of place, and it unconsciously affects us. And if we can be more conscious of how the past is echoing in our choices when it comes to home design, that we can create places that are fulfilling.
So tell me something. You're working with a married couple.
Yes.
Sometimes it could be beginning. Sometimes it could be they're they're changing. Do you interview the husband and wife separately?
No, I usually do it together. It's a bit like being a marriage therapist sometimes.
Right.
He wants one thing, she wants another.
I have to say, having gone through a couple of renovations myself, you could get divorced from this.
Yes, you can.
You can get divorced from a renovation, Toby.
Yes, but part of what I do is I draw out what I call the high positive associations that people have from past place. So maybe he came from a fishing village, but he had a lot of family that he was very close to. She comes from suburban New Jersey, but she also had family that's very close. So we think about photographs as being a centerpiece of, let's say, what's on the wall.
A big enough kitchen to cook a family dinner.
That's right.
Or have a big Thanksgiving meal.
Right.
I mean, I can sort of. But what do you do when you get to the nitty gritty, like colors and style?
Right.
Postmodern versus traditional, or what do you? How do you deal with all that?
Well, there again, it usually comes from things like people's personality type or people's experience in the past.
Can you tell like how they're dressed?
Well, I usually use these exercises. I have one that looks into people's personality type, and once they see, oh, I get it, I'm an extrovert, she's an introvert, then they understand that maybe they like one room arrangement versus the other, and then they tend to be more willing to compromise.
Well, they want cozy. But I want to ask you something, and it's not just New York City. I mean, it's in urban areas throughout the country, throughout the world, rather.
Okay.
So many folks today use decorators.
Right.
So what do? Do you interview you work with the decorators to make sure the decorator is getting to their personalities properly?
Well, that's a really great question.
Because I never know where the decorators' values and taste levels begin and end, and the folks who are going to be living there begin and end.
Right. Well, sometimes I actually do the interior design as part of the project as well. So then, since I've interviewed people, I know how to carry it through and translate it into the design.
So you actually then translate what you have found, your findings, to the decorator.
That's right. But other times I like to work with decorators who really appreciate and understand what I'm doing. So then I hand over the results to them, I fill them in, and then they decorate using the results that came out of the toolbox.
Right. So that's like another step, another layer in the design.
Yes,
right?
it is.
Yeah. And sometimes I read about it, especially, around the world, folks buy and call a decorator in, and it gets done in absentia.
That's true, and I wonder about that.
I wonder about that, too.
Yes, I mean, it's very often in our society that we decorate places based on what the media tells us how it should look like, or ought to look like, or must look like.
I mean, I see these ads, Toby, just bring your toothbrush.
Right. But, it's interesting when I do these exercises with people, what I find is it isn't something in an ad or that they see in a shop that they necessarily love, but I bring them back to childhood memory of a grandmother's cozy kitchen or a vacation home that they spent wonderful times on a porch lying in a certain couch.
They had good memories.
That's right.
So you really go back into the memories.
Yes. So rather than create some kind of vanilla space that could be good for anybody, it's something that really reflects them and who they are.
Right. Is this a popular field now?
Well, it's becoming more and more popular, and part of what I do is I go around to design schools and I talk to upcoming designers. I teach them about the idea and how to use it in their design process. So more and more it's become something that people understand.
Do you work
is important.
with manufacturers of home products to help them develop consumer-friendly products?
Well,
I can't tell you how many things I've seen that are totally impractical when you get them. They're beautiful in the showroom, but totally impractical when you get them in the home.
Yes,
or the
and
house.
it's really important to consider the human factors.
Yeah.
I do work with housing developers as well as they design or try to design very human communities, so that's part of it. And then now, most recently, I'm bringing out my own products that are for healing homes and healing spaces.
Right. I want to just take just a brief amount of time to talk to you about this house and home. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I got this, but I always had this idea that a home is what you do with a house. That the house
right.
is a shell or a box or something,
right.
and you turn it into a home.
Right.
But I consistently see the words being used interchangeably.
Well, I think people throw words around all the time. Again, it's your own psychology. How do you approach your home design? Do you try to impress others and look at it as just a place where you can have some esteem based on how much you acquired? Or is it really something that reflects you as a person? You feel good about yourself.
Right.
You want to share that with other people.
Yeah, right. I mean, it seems like it's not a home until you turn it into a home.
That's right.
I mean, to me, home is a very special word.
You're preaching to the converted.
Okay. And then one thing I would ask is, every time I always see, if you're selling your house, get rid of all the photographs because people won't think of it as theirs. If I walked into a house, a home, and I wanted to turn it into, or a house, and I wanted to turn it into my home, I would say, oh my gosh, they have all these nice family pictures around. I see where this could be nice and warm and cozy.
I agree with you.
Is there something wrong with me, or is it wrong with what I read?
I think the only time it's a problem is if people paint their home, for example, really wild colors.
Yeah, me too.
Then I think
or wild
turn-off.
carpets or something. But
Right.
I never understood this. Was like, get rid of all the family pictures. I think that's part of the personality of the space.
I agree with you.
Oh, okay. Well, we're a good team.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to ask you is, when you talk about this, don't look at magazines, don't look within. Mm-hmm. I'm not so sure people understand that look within.
Right.
How do you teach look within to people?
Well, again, it's very simple, even based on the environmental family tree I just talked about. As we're talking, perhaps you're thinking about grandparents' homes that you visited or the homes where you grew up, and you can just say, well, okay, what were the favorite places that I lived or that I visited, and what were the design elements in there?
But now this is like this big movement, minimalist. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying, oh my God, I have too much of us.
Right.
Or me. How do you practice minimalism in design psychology?
Well, again, it's not necessarily about minimal. It's about choosing the things that express you. So one of the things that I do that most people don't do when they decorate is I say, well, okay, look at even your paintings and your photographs and see which of those things really express you. And maybe you want to design even a room around the painting or the print or the photograph rather than vice versa.
Okay. I mean, I think you're this topic is terrific. I like reading about it. But also, we have to take a couple of minutes of the show to talk about the robe that you are wearing.
Right.
You wore that with a special purpose. That's one of your products now.
That is one of my products.
And it revolves around healthcare.
It does.
So tell us the story. Tell us the vision. We have a couple of minutes.
Yes, I started getting involved in designing healing environments because, again, there you're trying to create a nurturing space rather than
Hospitals,
just a room. Yes.
waiting rooms.
That's right. That's right. And shortly after I began that work, I myself got early-stage breast cancer and had to go through radiation. So rather than wear that kind of disempowering robe, I reached into my closet and got a wonderful golden robe, not this one, but another one that I'd had for many years, and went through the radiation pretending to be a queen, kind of staring down cancer. And based on that experience...
You designed the one you have on?
I did.
So there's a pattern, right?
I did.
Can you open it up?
I can, and I can tell you...
What is significant about the pattern of this robe?
First of all, I'll say that it's designed by a wonderful New York designer who has a method of transferring leaves and branches into intricate detail. But research tells us that views of nature, botanicals, actually have a healing effect on us.
Right.
So I particularly chose that so women can kind of feel the healing power of nature.
Right.
And another thing that's unique about this, and it's called the robe to wellness, is that I have in the gown's collar messages from other women who've gone through cancer treatment.
Right.
So it's like getting a hug from somebody
and
who's gone through the
support
experience.
From somebody that's gone through it.
That's right.
And you know, we have only maybe a minute or so left, but you mentioned that you're into designing now spaces for healing places.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. If there's ever a place that needs you more, it's hospital waiting rooms, especially where someone is in intensive care or in some kind of a specialized program. There's no place for you could even have any private family time.
Yes. And part of the way this robe is designed is so that you can put it on a kimono rod and hang it in a waiting room. So that way, it also has a kind of nurturing feeling.
And it also kind of defines the space, maybe. And
yes, it does.
And it's hopeful.
Yes, it is.
You know,
and then when I work with healthcare places to help them design the whole waiting room or space, I get them to think about what's the personal space, what's the private space, what's the semi-private space, what's the group space so families can meet and that kind of thing.
Right.
Really the human factors that go into the space.
Well, you could hire several teams. That could be a full-time job for you.
Yes, it could.
Yeah, but I respect what you do, design psychology. And I read about you, and I thanks you for being a guest on the show.
Well, thank you.
You opened up my eyes, I'll tell you.
Thank you
right.
for having me.
Thanks for being on the show.
Sure.
I'm Judith West. You're watching Getting Your Money's Worth. Our guest is Toby Israel, environmental design consultant. Thanks for being on the show, and thanks for watching.